Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production.
It's your ability to understand how it works, to understand how it works.
Q-tape. Possibilities Network. And 3, 2, 1. Live from Indianapolis, Indiana, this is the iPad Possibilities Show. With your host, Tim Chapman.
Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode 74, The Traveling Pad. This podcast is supported by GadgetFreeway.com. Go to GadgetFreeway.com for more information, and if you want to support this podcast, that is the best way to do it. And especially today, as we talk about traveling, there's some great gadgets there to help you and your iPad in traveling. So go to GadgetFreeway.com, and with that said, let's get into the show for today. Well, welcome. John's here with me for the live Sunday show. How are you doing tonight, John?
Good, Tim. And you?
Great. It's always a busy week, but a lot of fun stuff going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Great.
There's been a lot of iPad news this week. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. There's never a big iPad week, it seems, but there's always stuff going on.
Right. Definitely.
And
I think it'll be in, have to wait for a new announcement to really have a huge week but a lot of stuff trickles in, so that's good.
Yeah. And I think this isn't the show notes, but I think a huge announcement will be coming up pretty soon here. I think the new iPods, I think we'll see iOS 4 for iPad betas in developers' hands on that same day. That's my guess.
Yeah, I would suspect that they need to start coming out with those pretty soon. So.
Yep. So yeah, there's been rumors of an Apple event coming up very soon here within August. It's normally not until September, so we'll see if anything's changed there. And my hopes are we'll have a iPod Touch with front facing so I can do some more video podcasts. I think that'll be a great tool to do that. But with that said, let's get into the iPad stuff. And a lot of hospital stuff. You've been throwing in some stories here, and I've been finding some as well. The first one is from Computer World. iPads infiltrate hospitals. And I'm guessing what's going on here, John? Have you looked through this more?
Yeah, the essentially this is I believe in Australia. It's the state of Victoria, which I'm thinking is Australia, but I could be wrong. But their hospital is getting iPads starting in January to new doctors, nurses, and nurse practitioners to take around and work with around the hospital. So, just as I think you kind of predicted in one of the earlier shows, is that they're taking around and adding, the abilities to look at chart information, look at, potentially X-rays and different things that are really this little pad is a great tool to have. So.
Yeah, definitely. And pretty cool. I'm setting up an interview with an actual doctor who uses the iPad in the setting. So pretty soon here we'll have an episode on just this with a doctor that's actually doing this and kind of his thoughts on it. And
yeah, that'd be great to find out. I know that back when the iPad first started shipping, Crunch Gear had an article in April about hospitals in California ordering iPads as well. I don't know how that came about or what happened with that, but that was an interesting thing. And then even just a few days ago, ZDNet reported that the iPad was making its first hospital rounds.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I think we're at that point where probably enough applications targeted to healthcare are on the device now, and they'll start to be used a lot more. There's even one. I don't know if you looked at this one, but one of the CBS news stations had a story concerning in Ashland Community Hospital in Ashland, Oregon. They're using iPads for a different purpose, which is really to help patients. So they're looking at ways of having patients, play games on the iPad and do different things with the iPad to, reduce stress of being in the hospital and that type of thing. So,
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love a iPad when I'm sick and feeling down.
yeah, give you something to do instead of just. I'm not sure whether it's in the waiting room or whether it's when you're admitted or both maybe, but certainly both of those times are where you have a lot of time on your hand, and if you're at all starting to recover and you're not just sleeping all the time, you're bored to tears. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're stuck in bed. It's like, what are you gonna do?
exactly.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, a lot of hospital stuff going on. That's exciting because I think that's a realm that I think needs a revamp in this tablet industry. I know, a lot of hospitals still use these Microsoft laptop tablet things that are 5 pounds. The batteries die before the end of the day, and it's just I think a mess right now with that old system. They're still trying to navigate away from.
Yeah, definitely. It needs some new life in those kinds of situations. So let's see how it goes.
Yep. And I think we've got, I guess, the two big stories of the week. The first one is about the iSpot. And when I saw this, I was kind of curious. iSpot is from clear.com. And what they've done is they've created this little white, looks like a mouse, that's really a Wi-Fi 4G hotspot for up to 8 Apple iOS devices that gives you unlimited 4G for $25 a month, which is less than my unlimited 3G on my iPad, to note. And it looks pretty compelling. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's very interesting and makes me wonder whether I sold my Wi-Fi only iPad too soon. Maybe I should have sold the 3G version. But
Battery life won't be near the same with this thing, though.
That's true. But and the other thing about it, I mean, I still find the 3G to be a great tool to just pull out and use without having to set up something else, turn on something else. But I think it even more than just focused on the iPad. I think that it's great that these things are coming out with plans that are, I believe this plan is also a month-to-month plan, and so, that is something I could buy into for, a laptop or anything else. So even beyond, 3G iPads, it bodes well for just general connectivity for a lot of different devices, and I think it's great.
Yeah, and the device itself is $99, which is really good because I own 2 MiFis, a Verizon one that I got on eBay. It was $150, I believe. And I have a AT&T enabled one, which was $200 to $300. So this is very price conscious as far as the device itself. And it says month-to-month plans only. So there's not even a choice to go on a contract for this to get the device free. And I think that's great.
Yeah, it's it will remain to be seen how robust, if I can use that term, the device will be. It does look like it utilizes a lot of plastic, like you said. It kind of looks like a mouse, a white mouse. But hopefully it will hold up, and hopefully it's not $99 just because they've skimped on every single component in the thing.
Well, yeah, but MiFis traditionally are made of plastic. This is the one from AT&T. Well, not from AT&T. They don't like that I probably have this one. And then the Verizon one, it's plastic too. So I think plastics is kind of it's a form factor to use to have a good signal, right?
Certainly plastic on the outside. I haven't seen any of the new ones, but some of the first ones that came out at least had some kind of metal frame inside that made them a little sturdier than just straight plastic. I don't know how this will be. $99 is certainly a good price point. So
Yeah, definitely.
yep.
And interesting to note, I'm not sure how they're enabling this. It says it's only available to be connected to iPads, iPod Touches, or iPhones. How would anybody do this?
Yeah, I don't think they would. I mean, maybe the most I could see is, just like you go into a coffee shop or some other place where there's a hotspot, and the first thing you do to make it useful is you have to go into a browser and either pay for it or just accept their terms of service or whatever. And so if this was using a similar functionality and requiring you to initiate that connection through a browser, then it could detect whether you were using mobile Safari and limit it. But why would they do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it might be just a marketing thing.
Right, perhaps, yeah. You have 4G in your city.
I don't believe we do here in Phoenix. Haven't really paid much attention to it since I'm on AT&T, and I know AT&T doesn't have 4G, so I haven't really been paying attention. But I haven't heard anything that would lead me to believe we have 4G here yet, which surprises me because 10 years or so ago, Phoenix used to be one of the first places to get new technology with cell phone, just because we're so flat and we don't have a lot of storms to worry about. So it seems to be a good environment to test things. So, or at least that's what I was told. So,
Sure.
But no, we don't have 4G. Do you guys have it there?
No, the closest city is Chicago, I believe, with 4G to where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the cool thing is, you get 3G access too with this as well. I'm not sure if Clear is, if you have 4G, you also have 3G, but if you don't have 4G, I don't know if they'd have data here or not. Right? Because Clear is not a nationwide thing, right?
No, I don't believe it is. So I guess if you can use this, you probably have Clear and already know that you have 4G. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great for Chicagoans or people that live in, say, San Francisco if they have 4G, because that's probably a great thing because it's not as congested. But
Yeah,
the iSpot's out.
Hey, I have to something since you brought up San Francisco. For years now, I have been hearing people in the San Francisco and the Bay Area complaining about their bad iPhone reception.
Yeah, John Gruber was talking about that in the talk show the other day.
Now, I have been traveling for business to San Francisco quite a bit lately, and I have to tell you that in the city of San Francisco, in the real heart of San Francisco, at least, I don't know about the other side of the bay, but in San Francisco, I get excellent AT&T coverage on my iPhone and my iPad. I don't know what they're complaining about. I have not dropped any calls. I get great coverage inside buildings, outside of buildings. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are complaining about here, but
yeah, I'll
I'm not
test it out
seeing
if I ever make it out there. Yeah, I don't know. Might be those those outer rim territories. I don't know. Perhaps you just have specially blessed iPads and iPhones, John.
I'd like to think that.
Well, yeah, iSpot's out, and if you're a Clear person, you'll know about it. And the other big one, I think, is Genius. This whole Genius technology that Apple's using, so you can find applications that you'll like. Well, okay, so the Genius. This is what I've found is it's a great way to find highly rated apps and apps that I've actually think are pretty interesting. And right now in the regular app store, you can't even search by rating. And I think that's the most insane thing that they have. I mean, I'd rather search by rating than what's popular, because you can have a lot of popular things that are just not good, right?
True.
I mean, that's not
Apple really needs to do something about changing the way you search for things in the store. You need to be able to put in multiple multiple characteristics and search for things, because right now it is just really difficult. And I find even if I think I know the words or the name of an app I'm looking for, half the time I don't find it, and it's just really difficult. So I know a lot of people have abandoned searching for anything in iTunes, and they use the third-party sites, App Advice and things like that, to be able to hear about things, and then they try to go and actually find that one specific app, which, good luck, sometimes that doesn't even work in iTunes. I don't know.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, it's the most bizarre thing. I mean, the Genius has been a great way to find, as I was saying, it shows you kind of apps that are on your iPad that are closely related to them, that are also highly rated. So, like, all the 5-star apps, and that's a pretty cool thing, because there's a lot of hidden gems in there that you'll discover. And the other thing, they're also showing apps that are on your iPad that are iPhone apps that they have HD versions available. So it's reminding you, it's like sort of the music, when they had music that was at lower quality and you're able to upgrade your library, sort of hinting, hey, you can do this for this price. And they're kind of doing that with the iPhone apps, right?
Cool, very cool. Yeah, I'll have to try that Genius.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool feature, and it kind of, I don't know, it's good for developers that are making iPad versions to let their customers know that we've got a special version out for the iPad. It's also not that good for consumers, I would say, because perhaps it might encourage developers to go that route and that route alone, perhaps. Do you think it would encourage that kind of behavior?
Yeah, it will certainly encourage it in some developers. I mean, any way that somebody can differentiate themselves, that they will. So we'll see, but it's we'll see how well that all turns out.
Yeah, and I the next couple here, or the next one at least, is kind of a weird one. I was listening to a bunch of different podcasts, and I came across people talking about this iPad. And what they're talking about is this knockoff of the iPad with Android based. The box it comes in is very reminiscent of the iPad box. It's a 7-inch tablet that looks very cheap and crappy. I don't know. Have you seen these yet?
No, I haven't. I paid attention to some of the tablets that they were announcing a couple of months ago, but since then I've kind of just given up on it, because I don't think we're going to see something of the quality of the iPad coming out yet, until we really
here are the specs.
See some mainstream developer, mainstream companies bringing them out.
Yeah, here's the specs. It's the iPad iRobot 7-inch. And it's black and silver. It's got 7-inch touchscreen, which is 800 by 480. It's running Google 1.5, the Android OS, 720p playback, YouTube, thousands of apps via the marketplace, I guess. The CPU is really not that fast. It's 400 to 450 megahertz, which is over half under what the iPad is. The iPad's a 1 gigahertz chip. It does have a video camera,
right,
and a lot of other things, micro SD slots and 2 USB ports, and looks pretty unappealing to me. It's kind of funny looking at the pictures, though. It looks like a mini iPad that's just really cheaply made.
Yeah, and I think we'll continue to see a number of these knockoffs, and
yeah,
eventually we'll see something worthy, but
around $100. Not quite worth it, I don't think. If it was $10, I might pick one up just to play with it.
Well, and yeah, I mean, there'll be still a lot of people scrambling for $100 device, but I think they'll mostly be disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. And the last bit of news, I guess, is our news is a bit odd because it's not really news. They're more like things people are doing with I guess that's news. How do you define news?
Yeah.
But Mr. Gonzalez is using iPads in, I think, the elementary setting. He's got a cart that he's using for iPads, and he's found some apps that he's using, such as Dragon Dictate, converters, and Google Earth, eZimba, Solar Walk, some of the DNA stuff, and some pretty cool things on there. So he's using the iPad for younger kids, and I think that's great.
Yeah, he's actually getting. I guess he's gotten one right now for him to prepare for classes in September, and he's going to be getting 12 in September for his classes. And I think he teaches sixth grade and eighth grade, maybe seventh as well, but sixth and eighth were mentioned in the article. So yeah, I think it will be a very good thing as we see, and no matter how much we love the iPad, we know that the iPad will not be the only device that will be used in schools and education. But I think it's just wonderful that the iPad is kind of leading some of this revolution in education. I think we'll see a lot more innovative approaches to education because of the power of this little device that you hold in your hand and can do a whole lot with.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd much rather take a class with an iPad if I was a kid. It's like I'm signing up for that guy's class. He's got it, So the next bit of talking points, I guess, is you're in search of an iPad case.
I am definitely in search of an iPad case. So
what are your parameters here?
When I sold my Wi-Fi, the gentleman I sold it to wanted my case. So he wanted a discount too, and I gave him a little bit of a discount.
The Apple case you had?
Because it was used. The Apple case is what I had. And, the Apple case is a good case. I can't say anything really negative about it. It just wasn't all that I would like in an iPad case. So I'm resisting the urge to buy another Apple case and really kind of looking around. I've been to a couple Apple stores, and it's funny, at least the Apple stores I've been to have less cases now than they did the first week of the iPad coming out. So they seem to be carrying less of those cases. But
the first week was the easiest week to get accessories,
Yeah. And they had several third-party cases the first couple of weeks, and that maybe it was because the Apple case was so hard to get. I don't know, but now the stores I've been to only carry one or two cases other than the Apple case, and so I've been disappointed there. I've gone to a couple of other stores and don't find much, so I'm going to have to go online. But I'm looking for something that I can kind of carry the iPad around in. It's useful, if I'm at work going to different meetings or whatnot. It'd be really handy if it had some kind of way of connecting a strap to it, so that you don't always have to have it in your hand, but not totally necessary. So I know there's a number from Marware and from some other manufacturers. There's actually one that caught my eye from a company in Berlin called BagJack, I believe the company's called, and their case is called something like Cirque Discover or something like that. But it's a unique one. It reminds me a little bit of the one that I think our sponsor has, where you can put it over your shoulder and open it up, and kind of it supports the iPad a little bit while you're standing up. So, but that's an interesting one that I'd like to find out more about before I sink money into it.
Yeah. You can almost spend as much money in cases as you do the iPad if you start getting a couple of them.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's great if any of our listeners has some great case recommendations. Send them my way via Twitter, or drop them off in the show's email box or whatever. That'd be great.
Yep, definitely. And I am liking the Gadget Freeway iPad case bag more and more. I've got the water-filled bag that I use for when I really want the Apple case on the iPad, but I'm using it more and more for just when I'm going out and about, and it's a great case. I used it in church today as I took notes and used it for my Bible or whatever. And it was a great case because it was also a bag, so I could have my hands free and all that. And
Right.
yeah, one case idea I had that I was thinking about this. I've been using my iPad, and I'd love it if there would be some way to have a spot for your iPod Touch or iPhone, just like a stable spot, so it's pretty sturdy as like an external display for some extra information like Twitter on that screen. Or I don't know. I was thinking about this. Is there a way to make a case to do that? I think that'd be really cool.
Right. Interesting.
So I think,
We'll
it's
have to
not a
see.
heavy device, so you could probably, I don't know. I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting case to hold both.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the best for, I don't know. It'd be a good desktop case, I guess. So, yeah, you came up with this idea earlier this week on traveling with your iPad. What is needed to do that? And one thing I wanted to bring up before we get into this is we're kind of now arriving at this anytime, anything, anywhere future where information is pretty much at our fingertips at all times because of iPhones and iPads. And really, computers are just kind of disappearing behind these devices with pretty user interfaces. And we're just able to access, pretty much anything, GPS, directions, information. And it's really changed the way I think we've traveled. I remember before we had those paper maps and you actually had to mark out how you're going to get from point A to point B. Now I don't even think about that. I just start driving. And I think it's really changed things. How has it changed for you having an iPhone or iPad for traveling?
Well, it's really amazing. I was actually talking to somebody just today about the fact that 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to find someplace, even if you're just talking about a local thing where you want to find a particular store, well, you didn't have the internet and you didn't have GPS, and so you'd open up the phone book and start looking for things and look at a bunch of addresses and try to decide which one's closest to you, and then you'd either try to find it based upon the address if you knew the streets well, or else you'd call up the place and say, where are you and how do I get there? And it's just amazing that we now have these tools that at the spur of the moment, no matter where I am, I can say, I need this. Let me search and find stores that have that, and which one's closest to me, and give me directions to get there. I mean, it's just phenomenal what we can do, and it's great to do that on the iPhone or some other smartphone, but to have the iPad with 3G where you can do that on a big screen and really take a look at what you're seeing, really get enough information to make sure it's the right place you want to go, and get a beautiful map that will show you how to get there. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So I think it's really changed, the first world countries that have these kind of tools available to them to a great degree.
Yeah,
and I shouldn't just say first world. I mean, there's a lot of second world, if you will, countries as well that all have this capability.
Africa is huge into these iPhones, and I know in a lot of countries these are their computers. This is their main computing device. It's remarkable.
Unfortunately, from what I understand, and I haven't been to Africa, so it's all secondhand information, third-hand information, and I haven't been to a lot of other less developed countries, but the issue is the data available in those countries?
Right.
So they may have iPhones and be able to get data, but do they have data for where they are and what's available on them is the thing that they're catching up on. But I'm sure they will. They'll catch up on us, the rest of us, very quickly. So
I'm sure they will. I'm kind of interested if there'd ever be a way to do. We get satellite TV. Is there a way to do satellite data? Like anywhere in the world you get data?
Absolutely. There's satellite data. It's expensive.
Yeah.
But yes, there absolutely is. So it's a question of as there's more demand in these places for data, that they don't have an infrastructure that allows them to do it like well-developed countries do, then that will drive the price down, hopefully, and become ubiquitous. I certainly see that we may end up getting rid of all this 3G and 4G and everything else, and eventually everything shoots right up to the satellites, and no matter where we are.
Yeah,
really
cool. Because then you wouldn't have to worry about coverage areas. You're just on the world, and there's satellites in the sky. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, you do sometimes have to worry about weather a little bit more because that's between you and the satellite. But
that's true.
Doesn't close things down completely either. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really has changed. Having these devices, because I remember printing out MapQuest directions. I wasn't of the age where we actually had physical maps where we drew it out as much, but I remember MapQuest I used to visit pretty much on a semi-weekly basis.
Yep, definitely. It was MapQuest, and it was, and in fact, initially it was just getting a map and seeing where it was and printing it out and having no directions. You just had to figure out how to get there, and once you got there, if you could read the map, you could find the place.
Yeah, and that was the age where we actually knew what north was.
yeah. So and now we have directions, and as well as all the GPS stuff. So it's really improved things.
Yeah.
So
and regarding data plans, if you're traveling, I've helped some people travel with their iPads internationally from the U.S. and you're able to do AT&T's data over there. It's very overpriced, I think. But with the iPad, it's an unlocked device, so as long as the country you're traveling to has some SIM cards, you should be able to just get a local SIM card with your iPad and use that for data if you're staying in that country. And I think that's a good route.
Micro SIMs, right?
Yeah. But
micro SIMs.
You should be able to cut it down. I mean, right?
Yeah, you can.
We should get some cutters available, But
so I think that's that's potentially great. Is that I've traveled with the iPhone and have wanted that capability to do that. I remember the first time I traveled out of the country with my iPhone, and I had just heard about people who had gotten these huge bills, and so I was deathly afraid of using my iPhone for anything, just because I was afraid I would get this huge bill. So, I mean, it's becoming more and more something that people do, and I think we'll see over time those prices come down for roaming internationally, as well as more capability for local SIM cards.
Yeah,
it's all good.
And I think my next iPhone, if I get one. Next year, when I get my next iPhone, I'll probably end up going to Canada and buying their unlocked version, which they now sell there. And I think that's the route I would actually go if I got a new iPhone, because I'm sick of carrier locks. It's just the most obnoxious thing ever.
Well, it'll be pretty pricey though, right? Because it won't be subsidized.
Yeah, it'd be I think around $700. Yeah, but it's unlocked, so it has high resale value. Because it's factory unlocked. It's not like a hack unlock. So you could, still do the regular software updates with this Canada unlocked at the factory phone.
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll see. When iPhone 5 comes around, we may have, it on every carrier and it might not be locked down at all. So I'm optimistic.
True.
So, yeah. So data is important, and kind of research it. And one thing to keep a note, if you're traveling internationally, you may have to call up AT&T and let them know my iPad is now not in the States. I actually was helping somebody travel to Italy, and I was supporting them, and I actually had to call up AT&T and ask, why is this iPad not seeing the towers here? And they said they needed to know that, hey, what country is it in, so I can start looking for... It was still looking for Indiana towers, apparently. So they had to reset the device or whatever, at AT&T's headquarters to find European towers, which I thought was the most bizarre thing.
Yeah, that does sound kind of bizarre. But the other thing is that I understand that if you're traveling, with the iPhone at least, that if you don't sign up for the international plan ahead of time, that it can be much more costly.
Yeah.
So it's probably something that you want to do. Make sure it's all good before you leave anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, with that said, let's get on to stuff that doesn't need data as much. That's GPS navigation. A lot of these have their apps preloaded. Some don't, and like I think Motion GPS Drive, yeah, that one does, but some of them don't. But MotionX GPS Drive is a great one, and we've got all the traditional ones, Copilot HD. What I've been finding, have you been finding this too, John? How the iPhone GPS apps upscale pretty well, like TomTom and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I use Navigon, and that upscales beautifully on the iPad. And it makes a lot of sense because typically one of those apps doesn't really have a lot of its own graphics. It's really maps, and the maps from the map database are kind of infinitely, well, not infinitely, but they scale to all kinds of size, obviously, to zoom in. And so, anything that you're looking at, they're going to be able to display more of it on the screen because the screen's larger. So they're really, a good thing. The map, the application that my company makes, sits on my way. We encountered that with the iPad as well. Is that our graphics, are a little. Some are a little pixelated. We're actually working on an update, but some are a little pixelated on the iPad. But since it's really focused on the map, that works out beautifully on the iPad.
Yeah, it really does. I've used it on the iPad. It works great. And another thing I've thought of is it's often better to just get the iPhone version because you actually use it on both devices now. If you get a GPS app for your iPad that's an HD version, it's stuck to your iPad. I think that's not a good way to go with the price of these apps, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them can be fairly expensive, but yeah, the iPhone version is the way to go because there's no real need to worry about scaling it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another, I found NavMe GPS, and these are for like European countries like France, Italy, Netherlands. They've got this. I've never tried this because I've never been over there, but it seems like an interesting application set.
Yeah, I saw that in the show notes and looked at it. They do look interesting. There's a number of things. The app I use, Navigon, is actually I believe a French company or maybe German. I can't recall, but it is certainly a European company, and they used to do GPS devices here in the U.S. for a little while. They're well known in Europe. They tried selling them here in the U.S. and they eventually pulled out of the market. But while they were here, I had purchased one for my wife, which she still has, and then they came out the iPhone version. So I liked their software, and so I picked it for the iPhone. Unfortunately, her dedicated GPS device, because they pulled out of the U.S. market, they haven't updated maps for that device for a couple of years now. So we're often finding new construction places not listed on the maps, but on the iPhone version they keep it up to date, which is great. So
yeah, that's one thing I love about the apps because they continually update them. I know we just had some roundabouts put into our area of town, and they're on my TomTom app. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think this was in here because it's such a new development.
Yeah, that's it. It seems to me that dedicated GPS devices are kind of, unless they're built into a car, are kind of on the way out.
Right.
And I mean, you look at this. Granted, you can get one for $100 or a little bit more than $100, but if you're talking about a good one that has a lot of functionality and features, it's probably $300 or $400. And you look at getting an entry level iPad for a little more than that. Just seems like a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
I wish they had the GPS in that low-level iPad, because you do have to jump up to the 3G to get the GPS. Another thing I wanted to mention, Tim, because you were talking about the fact that they don't need data because these apps, include that data. But the one thing to be aware of is, and I didn't try this on the iPad, but when I was traveling last summer with the iPhone, if I turned off, the cellular coverage, because I didn't have any coverage in the country I was in, and I didn't want to, accidentally hook onto some roaming carrier and end up getting huge charges, I discovered that if I did turn that off, it turned off all the radios. So it turned off my GPS as well, and I couldn't use my GPS, so I had to kind of turn it
I think they may have fixed that issue with the ability to turn cellular data off without going in airplane mode. Do you think that fixed
Yeah, well, I'll have to experiment a little bit with it, and I'd love it if any of our listeners, know this and can let us know. But I had heard that there were some changes that would allow that. But I do know that in your great jailbreaking community, that there is a jailbreak that specifically allows you to turn on and off each individual radio.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that if I was traveling again, I would look to maybe have that capability, because I don't think you, even if what I heard was true, that there was some ability to turn off selected radios, it certainly wasn't all the radios. And so it would be one thing to be able to go in, for instance, if I was traveling, maybe I would want to, with the iPad, I would want to maybe turn off data but leave GPS on. Yeah. Or conversely, if I went traveling with the iPhone, maybe I would, if I could, if it was unlocked, I would want to get a local phone SIM, but I might not want to do a local data plan because those might be too expensive.
Yeah.
And so I'd want to turn off data without turning off the phone.
Right. Yeah, there is a toggle in iOS for cellular. I have a hard time saying cellular. It's a weird word. But you can turn off cell data in iOS 4, which is pretty cool.
Right.
So that's a nice thing. And then, so navigation and GPS apps or something I think are going to be pretty important to have if you're traveling. And the next one I thought was, what if you don't know the language you're traveling to and you don't want to be one of those, I guess you'd still be one of those people that doesn't know the language, but there's a number of apps that will help you speak with those that do not speak English.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of these first appeared on the iPhone, but I think the iPad is just such a better device to have it on because, as opposed to trying to, point at stuff on your phone when you're trying to deal with somebody, having the larger screen where there's larger areas to press what you want to press, and you don't have to be, so focused on the little phone screen that you're ignoring the person you're trying to converse with. And the other direction as well, in that, the other person might be, some of these apps kind of are geared to the other person looking at the app and giving you the answer so you know what they're saying by selecting something in the app and having a larger screen
over at them. Yeah.
Right. And it's less intimidating, I think, with the larger screen for them. They don't have to get as close to read it or anything, and they could just, touch it and give you the translated thing back of the answer to your question. So I think the iPad is really cool in that way. Obviously, some people would question you pulling out your iPad as you're traveling and having people touch it. But, I guess it depends upon the situation.
Yeah. And I'm curious, I have not found this yet. I've heard they're around, but are there apps that allow you to speak what you want translated and it will play it back in the speaker in the new language?
I think I heard something about that, but I wouldn't swear that it's actually come about. It would be interesting if it was.
Yeah, I've heard of its existence, but I'm not sure where it's at. So if any of our listeners know what we're talking about and have this app, I'd love to hear what it is. So the ones I discovered are Traveler Interpreter, 24 languages, and it's $10, and it's a universal app. And then we've got Language Translator HD Pro for $2, Translator with Voice, and Lonely Planet Phrasebooks. And seems like a lot of these are pretty similar, and some are probably better than others. Yeah, I'd probably just check out the ratings and stuff because I've not personally had any experience with these apps. I just know they're out there and they look like pretty good apps.
Yeah, I've played around with a few, and it's great to be able to have them pronounce things for you. I've attempted to listen to the pronunciation of something a few times and then actually repeat it myself, and that works out okay sometimes. But if worse comes to worse, or you're just too embarrassed to try to fumble over a pronunciation, just have the device play it for you, for the person you're trying to communicate with, and that's good enough, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, with that said, we've got a bunch of apps. We're not gonna go through each one in depth like we have been so far, I don't think. But there's a bunch of apps to help you plan out your trip and help your trip go more effectively. And I think the first one is Travel Tracker Pro. So it's great for planning, recording travel expenses, having your itinerary there. It integrates with TripIt.com. It's got live flight status, and it can download some stuff locally to your iPad. So that sounds like a pretty cool app to have.
Yeah, it does, and it's reminds me of an app I use, and I've used since my iPhone days, which is a trip where you can actually put in details of your trip, your plane reservations, your hotel, your rental car, whatever, and it keeps you up to date on when you need to check in, gives you a reminder about when you need to leave for the airport, kind of stuff, and has all that information, like when you're checking into your hotel, has confirmation number and stuff because you put it in there, and it's all in one place, which is really handy.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to go through some apps that you discovered in your search of making the iPad more travel friendly?
Sure. Like you say, we have a bunch here in the show notes, so we should probably make sure people can take a look at these. But some of them are things like there's Plane Finder HD, which kind of shows you where aircraft are. I'm not sure that that's incredibly useful, but some people are always curious about is there a plane on time and whatnot, and this shows flights from all over the world, so it's
so you can
it's
actually
kind of
see where
an interesting
planes
thing.
are in the air.
Yeah, it's not completely live. It's I think there's a delay in it, and it only updates at certain points in time. But it's there's also a navigation one that tracks ships as well. So it's kind of
Pretty
an
awesome.
interesting thing for people. Yeah. I mentioned this I think a couple weeks ago. Points Inside Maps, which gives you at least in the U.S., it gives you maps of most of the major airports. So that's very useful when you're trying to get from gate A to gate ZYXG. You can kind of get a layout of the airport and figure out where you're going. Another one called Gate Guru, which also I'm not sure if it works very well internationally, but it gives you some idea of what you can eat in an airport. So if you're traveling and have a bunch of layovers, and so you're kind of stuck in the airport during meal times, this kind of, without walking all over the airport, it kind of gives you an idea of, okay, well, if I really want this, I can walk over there versus, sit here and eat stale pretzels or something. Flight Sites is another one that works with a variety of U.S. carriers, and it gives information on those carriers and on their flights. Tripcase I mentioned. And then there's a bunch of them that we don't need to go into all of them, but there's a bunch of ones specifically for different airlines, Southwest Airlines, American Airlines, others, that are useful if you're a frequent flyer of that, or even if, most of those are free, So, even if it's just a family trip that you want to, I'd recommend looking for an app from the carrier that you're going to use, and that might provide some useful information when you're on the go.
Yeah.
Same way with hotels. Same way with hotels. There's a bunch of apps for specific hotel chains. So, if you're planning your trip and haven't booked your hotel yet, you can go out and get these apps, and they help you find, rates in different cities and whatnot. And they're, again, most of them are, in fact, probably all of them are free.
Have you had any luck using your iPhone or iPad to, I guess, log into, I don't know, use it as a ticket or anything like that?
I haven't. I have seen people in the airport do that, but I have not with, the carriers that I've been flying recently. They don't have that kind of capability, but I know some of the carriers have embraced that, and it's kind of interesting to see somebody walk up to the security checkpoint and show their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned Skype, I believe, or was that me?
Well, it doesn't matter who it was, but
Yeah.
Skype is certainly if you have the 3G with you and can Skype, sometimes it can save you some good phone bills.
Oh, definitely. And they've updated so you don't have to be jailbroken for 3G, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've used my iPad as a phone before when I left my phone stupidly inside in a locked house. And it worked really well. I was surprised. So, and then another thing to mention is as you're planning your trip, a lot of cities, especially the bigger cities, have their own travel guides and like tourism stuff to check out. And the quality will vary by city, and I think that's going to be something important to check out to make sure you hit all the spots.
Yeah, and cities have their own guides that they've put out, but there are also the traditional companies that put out city guides in paper editions that are putting out iPad and iPhone editions as well. So those are something you should look for.
Yeah. And another thing I discovered is clocks. One thing I always have a problem with is getting on the right time zone when I travel. That's one of my biggest things. I understand how time zones work generically, but it doesn't help me find the right time. I know, PST, EST, and I don't know. It's all messed up in my head. But there's apps for that. So News Clock is $1, and it gives you $1, and it gives you access to a bunch of different time zones and clocks. And there's a couple others. I think Cities is another one. And this is great for if you don't have access to the internet, you can't Google what time is it in this city. You can have this app instead.
Right, and I have Cities. I don't remember how much it was. It was a couple of bucks, but it another useful feature that Cities has is if you're planning on something, say you're going to go somewhere and you want to tell somebody that I'll call you when I'm at the Eiffel Tower or something. What you need to know is if you're going to be at the Eiffel Tower at 10 o'clock Paris time. What time is that back home? So Cities allows you to actually set a day and a time in any given location around the world, and you can then see what that exact moment is anywhere else in the world. So it makes it very good for planning things. So it's not just the current time anywhere. It's the ability to kind of look ahead or look behind and see what time it is.
That's pretty cool. That'll be handy for scheduling, interviews and stuff.
Exactly. In fact, I used it for the last interview that we recorded in trying to figure out what would be a good time for all of us was since that was an international interview, which is coming up in the stream next week.
Yeah. John's hinting at an episode we did for the Wednesday Thursday show next week. I love the episode 75. So it's a big one. We're getting close to 100. I'll have to figure something out for that. But yeah, the next kind of apps, local stuff, subway and train apps, I think will be very important for if you're traveling to New York City and want to be able to travel from point A to point B without, doing the expensive taxis or whatever. 1,000 Experiences, Ultimate Experiences, another one that it's based off of some website that has a bunch of different places you have to go before you die or something like that. And then, we talked about Kayak before, and this is just a beautifully done app for traveling and getting prices of airlines and all sorts of stuff like that. And another one, currency. And this is something that's kind of important to realize, that your money is going to be worth a different amount depending on the place you go. So it might be helpful to have that.
Well, and most people don't think about it, but that exchange rate changes day to day. So having the ability, like 10, 15 years ago when I would travel, I would have some idea of what the exchange rate was, because I would check it out before I left, and then, when you're there, you look around for different banks that will exchange, and knowing if one is much different than what the going rate is or not is, how you save some money. Yeah. And now with apps like Currency, which I have on my phone at least, you can more quickly see what the real exchange rate is, and then when you walk into a place to exchange money, you know how much they're taking as their share of that transaction.
Yeah, I'd love to see if these apps have some sort of graph as far as how money is being evaluated over time, and that kind of feature would be nice to have.
I know they do on websites, so I'm not sure if any of these apps do that as well. But
yeah. And then, of course, as you're traveling, some sort of weather apps, a weather bug or something like that's going to be pretty important. And then the other ones I thought were important, just simple entertainment. So Netflix, I guess Hulu would not... Wait, Netflix and Hulu would only work within United States, correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking that's probably the case.
Yeah.
Although that doesn't mean...
So it's still good for the air.
I don't know how you could do that on the... I know how to fool that on a laptop, but I'm not sure how to fool that on the iPad yet.
I don't think you could, no. That'd be interesting if a jailbreak would enable you to change your... I think that's around, to change your location on the device itself as far as what it reports to. I'm not sure if that would fix the IP address thing, though. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Well, that's just it. Is they're doing IP addresses and some of the anonymizer capabilities where you actually enter into a network from a local country and exit in another country. And to all websites, it looks like you're in that other country is what you'd have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's available yet for the iPad.
Yeah. But it'll still be good for local travel and, at the airport before you get on the plane. And the last one is Air Video. And I've gotten this to work over 3G. And this would work anywhere in the world. So, very cool. And also Slingbox is another way to get your local stations internationally. So, those are all good video solutions, I think.
Yep.
And then
and certainly all the books, right?
Yeah, all the books. If you're an iBooks guy, have iBooks on there, Kindle, and kind of preload them so you have stuff to read even if you're outside of wireless access points, Okay. And then one I thought I should add here is iTeleport, because what if you want to access your Mac or Windows machine and you just forgot something that you need to do, some maintenance on your Mac or something, or I think that's an important one to have because iTeleport works, anywhere in the world, basically.
Yeah, iTeleport or the other versions of VNC are certainly something that you should look into.
And then a couple others. These are, I tried to add some stuff that were just, it's common sense stuff to have on there, such as Dropbox, having access to your files if you use that. Evernote, having access to your notes or whatever. And then Instapaper is a great one because it stores the information offline. So you just Instapaper a bunch of articles you want to read in the plane. And then you launch up Instapaper make sure you sync it first, and you'll have all your articles there.
Yeah, definitely. And, those are really important. Those might not be so important if you're on a family vacation, but if you're traveling for work, having those things prepared ahead of time can mean a world of difference about whether you're successful in your business trip or not, because you forget the one file you need, and with iTeleport or Dropbox available, then you have it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And some built-in ones. I thought we should talk about some built-in apps. And of course, Google Maps will be great for traveling because it's anywhere in the world it works. It's Google. Calendar. So if you have an itinerary, you're able to have that with the built-in calendar, your iPod, and videos. I think those are all critical things to have on there and load up.
Yep, definitely.
And then not included here, some hardware things to bring along. You want to have your AC plugs for Europe if you're going there, some extra batteries, even though the iPad is less necessary of that, but get some HyperMac batteries that if you're going in the woods or whatever, you need your batteries. So just have, all the necessary gear for that kind of stuff.
Well, even if you're not going in the woods, I mean, there's a lot of times where you're going to be away, you're going to be traveling in cars and buses and whatnot, and you may just run out of power, not be able to recharge.
10 hours is 10 hours. It won't get you all day. Well,
right.
It does for me. I never use my iPad more than 10 hours in a day outside of a charger, so I don't know. So, that's kind of our take on traveling with the iPad. There's a lot of great apps out there, a lot of great hardware things you can add on to it, such as batteries and cases and stuff. And, so that's kind of our thought on, having the GPS apps and language stuff. And that said, let's just get on to our picks of the week, unless you have some final thoughts here with travel.
Yeah, well, I would just say, people should, a lot of people would not think about taking the iPad with them on a travel, but I would say give it a thought, even if it's just a short vacation or something like that, you will find not only is it a great device to have for entertainment purposes when you're, bored or whatever and can play a little game or something, but it's, if it's part of your daily life in work, then it can still be part of your daily life and when you travel. So.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Scrabble would be a fun one to load up for the airplane terminal before you leave. But yeah, definitely bring the iPad everywhere you can, and you'll use it more and more. But what do you have for us this week as far as your pick, John?
So I ran across an app that is it's just a neat app in that it kind of goes where I talked about when Tim, if you remember back when we first talked about screen sharing, like Air Display you have, and there was another one that I bought that iDisplay that
a train wreck.
Didn't really work all that great for me. But the one thing about those that I always felt was a letdown was that they're just treating your smart iPad as a dumb monitor, right? I mean, that's all they're doing.
Right.
Is just, okay, here's some more real estate to display something. And I really wanted something that would leverage the fact that the iPad is an intelligent device and you can do something with it.
Right. Makes
and
sense.
So this application is kind of the first step in that direction. It's called Gadget Connect. There's a light version you can get to try it out. I would recommend, if you're at all interested, buy it. It's only $1.99, but buy it. It's a universal app, so you can use it on your iPhone, iPod Touch, as well as your iPad. But what it does is, and this works really good for Macintosh users. I don't think that they have their desktop application out for Windows yet, but for Macintosh users, there's a free desktop application that you can run, and you run Gadget Connect on your iOS device. And what it does is you can then instantly essentially bring up windows that you're looking at in Gadget Connect or in Safari on the Mac on the other device. So, I don't know if this has happened to you, but many times I would be like browsing on maybe my desktop, and I'd found something interesting, and then I was going to leave the desktop, and I'm going to be on the iPad, and so I could either, Instapaper, or what I really wanted to do was just be able to drag that window over to the iPad and have it there. And that's what this does. And they're working on some abilities to do other things, like bring up PDF documents. So if you're looking at a PDF document, the perfect example, and I don't think you can do this yet, but this is what they're talking about being able to do in the upcoming version, is I'm thinking about, a developer. I'm developing something. I come to a problem in the code. I look up a reference, and it's like, okay, here it is in this PDF, is this section that gives me the information I want. But now I don't have enough screen real estate to keep this open on my screen and code on my screen. So I can just zap this thing over to my iPad, and I have that reference sitting there on my iPad, and now I can go back to coding on my Mac. And, that is a really useful thing in my mind. And
definitely.
Again, what I'm really seeing here is somebody thinking about how do we use the iPad intelligently to augment the desktop. And so I want to see more of that. I really don't want to just see the iPad being a dumb monitor. I want it to be that intelligent device that I can easily integrate. It's on the network with my desktop, and I can use its intelligence to do things, and not just be a monitor. Cool. So anyway, Gadget Connect seems like a pretty cool thing.
How much does it run for?
It's $1.99, or there's a light version you can try out for free.
And it's called Gadget Connect. Do you know who the developer is or who makes it?
It's I believe a gentleman in Germany. Trying to recall here. Let me see if I can just pull it up real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it through Google. I guess I might have to use the App Store to find this one.
Yeah, Kai Eras is the gentleman.
Okay.
Who did it. And it was originally called, I think, WebShare, and then there was some legal issue with that name. So now it's called Gadget Connect. And there's a cool video that kind of shows it all on his website.
Yep, I found it. It is universal, as you said.
Yeah.
It looks very cool. Right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try this one out. It's 50% off until the next update goes live, evidently. And yeah, right now it shares just websites, and they're adding some other things pretty soon, so that'll be very cool. And
so, and as I say, it seems to be the tip of the iceberg of what is possible with the iPad.
Yeah, definitely. So. I think that'd be very cool. It kind of scares me. It's like we're getting to that step where you'll be able to switch your Mac to iOS mode. I think it reminds me of this a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, my pick of the week is you remember Bills for iPad?
Right.
They've got another app out called Budgets for iPad with Sync, and this is like, I guess, Bills for iPad on steroids, because you're able to, mark when you're getting income and having expenses in there, and really budgeting out your income in a smart way that makes sense. So a lot of graphs, and it's a beautifully designed app once again. And I think this will be my go-to app for budgeting and even bills. I might move away from Bills for iPad in favor of this app. We'll see. I think I'll stick with Bills for iPad just because it's dead simple as far as reminding me when I need to pay stuff.
And I think I mentioned this when you brought up Bills for iPad. In my life, I didn't see much need for that, but this I see is a very useful thing. It's always great to have the ability to plan ahead and budget like this, and not just know when bills are due, but actually, look at what you're spending on different things and determine, where you have or you should put money aside for and not. So this looks like a great app.
Yeah, it's
and a great use of the iPad.
Yeah, these guys write beautiful software, and they really do specialize in this financial field, and I think that's good for companies to do specialize and get really good at one particular thing and just update it and make it better.
Right.
So yeah, that's budgets for iPad, and yeah, I think I believe it syncs with other devices as well and stuff like that. I'm still in the early phases of using it, but I thought I'd mention it as I think it's a great app to have. So yeah, those are our picks of the week. Any final words before we move on to feedback and support and all kind of stuff?
Nope.
Cool. Well, we successfully made it through the show on AT&T's 3G network over my iPad using MyWi. So I'm not sure how. Yeah, it worked great. So another jailbreak plus, which I'm sure I shouldn't be advertising this, but yeah, worked great. So with that said, if you want to leave
in a pinch.
Oh, what?
In a pinch, it worked.
It did. So when you're having problems, just go to your iPad 3G over AT&T's network. Works great. So, yeah, feedback. If you want to send us feedback, we'd greatly appreciate that. You can call in to 209-542-iPad or simply email us at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com, and I'll forward stuff over to John when I get those if you want questions for him. And I'm working on an email address for you, John. But in the meantime, iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. And then to support this show, just go to GadgetFreeway.com. And relating to travel, the anti-glare, I think, is going to be a perfect thing for travel because one thing I've noticed other people commenting is on the airplane, the iPad screen is not the best with all the ambient lights surrounding you, and having an anti-glare protector is going to be something pretty critical, especially as you're in the streets in the sunlight trying to use your iPad. So GadgetFreeway.com, they're sponsoring this podcast, and I'd like to thank them for doing that. I'd check out that anti-glare protector, and it's going to be a really invaluable tool for traveling, I think, especially. Yeah,
I'm it's ashamed I didn't think of that before. It's an excellent thing to have, and I experienced that on an airplane where I was not at the window seat, but somebody was, and they decided that they were going to keep the window wide open, and I was getting all kinds of glare on my iPad screen. So, yeah, great.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to note, I don't normally put screen protectors on devices like this, but I think the glare is the reason to do it. And I'll tell you, the iPad itself has one of the most durable, non-scratch-free screens I've ever, used. I'll tell you this. Recently, a couple days ago, I had my iPad on my bed. I have a dog with very long fingernails right now. They need clipped. And she decided to jump up on my bed and walk all over my iPad. She might have even landed on my iPad with those very long nails. And I was just in terror thinking my iPad was going to be scratched. And to my wonders, it wasn't. The screen was flawless. I'm thoroughly impressed with their screen builds.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong surface.
Yeah, but with that said, anti-glare is something it's not good with. So go to GadgetFreeway.com, and that's how you support this show. And just grab the anti-glare protector. And I love their iPad case bag, as I call it. It's $80, but it's both the case and a bag, and it's very high quality, made in USA, and all that good stuff. And they've got some new iPad stuff coming out pretty soon here, I believe, that are special products that are made only by them. So with that said, you've been listening to Tim and John on the iPad Possibilities podcast. We will both be returning to you for the Wednesday Thursday show with a special guest, and we will talk to you guys again then. Have a great iPad week.